Hi, everybody. My name is Ed Berkman, and this is The Common Law. Here at The Common Law, we like to break down everyday legal issues and kind of get a sense of the legal community here in our community. Now, I've been a little busy. As you know, I recently took on a new job where I am the manager and lead attorney of Signature Escrow and Title up in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. I also continue to do legal work here in Massachusetts. If you have any sort of legal question, please feel free to contact me. My email address is below on the screen here. Now, before we get started, I just want to let everybody know, although I am an attorney, I am not your attorney. Anything you hear on this episode of The Common Law or any episode of The Common Law, please do not take anything said here today as legal advice. I assure you, if we're talking about something that sounds very similar to your legal situation, the devil is in the details with these things, and I promise you there will be some aspect that will be different to your case. So if you hear something and it raises a question, again, you're welcome to reach out to me or contact your own attorney to get that legal advice. Again, what we're having here is simply a conversation, and, you know, hopefully you find it a little informational and entertaining. Now, my guest this evening is Judy Dodier, and she is a realtor at Lamacchia Realty in Amesbury, which is right next to us. And I believe there's an office in Newburyport as well, correct?
Newburyport.
Fantastic. Judy, welcome to The Common Law.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Of course. Now, Judy, why don't you tell me how you got started as a realtor?
Sure. Well, my story has always been in real estate. I started out in mortgage lending, and I spent 30 years in mortgage lending. My most recent, before changing 7 years ago to become a real estate agent, I was a senior vice president of mortgage lending at a large credit union here in Massachusetts. I decided it was time to make a change, and it just made a kind of natural, organic transition into becoming a real estate agent, because I already knew the background of the mortgage industry, the real estate industry, and I had spent a lot of years, and so it was a nice, easy change for me.
Nice. How long have you been a realtor for?
About 7 years. I'm going in my 8th year pretty soon. In July, I'll be turning into my 8th year. But yeah, it's been an easy transition, a comfortable transition. I thought, being a little bit older, maybe I would not have transitioned into another career type, but this was nice and smooth.
Yeah, I mean, as someone who also changed careers sort of in adulthood, it can get scary, right?
Yeah.
So it's nice to have, and especially if you're in a related field, right? So there's a natural progression from mortgage lending into realting, into being a realtor, and it's nice because it's still client focused, it's still people focused.
Yes.
Tell me, what's the thing you like most about being a realtor?
The thing I like most about being a realtor is putting the whole package together. I look at things as a puzzle. Not every transaction is different, and so meeting the needs of whether it's a first-time buyer and being able to really help and pitch in on the financing side and answer somewhat of the questions. I found myself, I can't go too deep because I'm not the lender, and every lender is different, but I feel I can help them navigate some of the nuances sometimes of that, and then putting that together with the home purchase and understanding the real estate market. Coming from a financial services background, I'm very analytical. I love to deep dive right into, what the average sales are, what this cost per square foot, and really find out everything there is about the property. Who's owned it? How long have they owned it? What has been done to the property? Permits even. Sometimes I go a little bit far, but I really want people to get the most information to make their best decision that they can. So I like pulling all those pieces of that puzzle together and just seeing it come together as a beautiful picture.
That's great. And I think probably your background is mortgage lending, because that's very detail oriented. And so you need to get all the research done and do all the figures and, have all, there's a lot of math and there's a lot of research involved in it. So I like to hear that you're putting all that effort into it. Even though, because that isn't always done, right?
Right. Not always. Sometimes you'll find it's really just about moving property, meeting people. I'm not certainly criticizing any other agent out there, but it's really important, I think, to be there and be a part of it, not just put a lockbox on a property
Yeah.
and say, go look at it. They're not selling the property. You're not getting the detail and helping them with going and seeing it even with them. I try to attend as many open houses as I can so that I'm actually there in person seeing what they saw. So when I'm helping them decide on what to offer and putting an offer on the property, I understand what they're looking at and kind of can help guide them, as opposed to just sending an email, here's a listing, you go look at it, call me if you want it, I'll write it up, we never meet, we never talk.
Yeah. I mean, that's great, because that's what you're really getting at. Like, that's the heart of agency, right?
Exactly.
Like, that's what an agent is. It's you have a fiduciary relationship with your client to do all of that legwork and to do all of that research and planning and putting the pieces together. So
Absolutely.
that's absolutely fantastic.
Yep.
Coming from lending, did you feel, I guess, you miss sort of that piece of it? Because I know the schedule can be a little bit more traditional and a little bit more, you're in the
Structured.
office more, structured.
Yeah.
So do you miss any of that?
I did it first, and I went into the office. I sat down every day. I got there at 8 o'clock. I used to work, from 8 to whenever the day is done. Skip lunch a lot of times because you're, in hustle bustle. The most recent years was during the refinance boom, right?
Yeah.
So it was crazy. A lot of hours spent in time in the office, and I didn't know how to adjust to having flexibility and managing my own time from working as hard as I did to transitioning that with, when you start out, you don't have a lot of following. You really got to build that relationship building and get out there and get your name out, market yourself, introduce you to people. I found for me, working in my hometown, I was born and raised in Amesbury. My mother's family's from Newburyport. So this was my home. When I worked at the credit union I worked at, it was 40 miles away from here. So it wasn't home. I didn't have that connection to the community as I do around here. So getting involved and getting out there to everyone, I found it easier to transition into that. Wow, I can go visit this. I can attend a Chamber of Commerce meeting. So I did join a lot of the boards. I was on the Amesbury Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors and Rotary I'm still on, and did all those things to get out and just let everyone know, hey, I've changed careers. And it's been a huge help for me, just getting involved in meeting people that I knew before, that I hadn't seen, because I get in the car and drive 40 miles away every day. So getting back involved in the community was a really great way to kind of get myself away from that desk, which I was so used to sitting at every day for 8 to 10 hours a day.
Yeah, it can be kind of like you're chained to it sometimes,
Yeah.
right? And it's much more rewarding to be active in the community because you really get a sense for what the community needs, what the people need. You're much more hands-on as opposed to when you're at a desk job, you're just punching in and out. I worked for a software company for almost 10 years before I was a lawyer, and it was working really hard from 8 to 5:30.
Yeah.
And then but I'm clocking out every day at 5:30, and I'm enjoying my evening. And it's
Right.
as an attorney, especially in real estate, the real estate is not a 9 to 5 gig
At all.
Any of the roles, there's a lot of moving pieces to it.
Yeah.
But as a real estate attorney, I've always struggled, or not struggled, but it was a struggle at first when you're okay, I have the contract needs to get signed today. I need to walk my client through it. If there's questions or if there are concerns, I had one time where it was the Friday before Memorial Day, and I had taken the day off, but I had a purchase and sale that needed that was a deadline, right? So it needed to be signed that day. So I'm working from home in my home in Newburyport, and I literally have my friends outside with the boat parked on the street.
Come on, let's go.
And honking on the horn and be like, hey, let's go. And I'm trying to get this, it was actually very bizarre. So it was a condo in an old mill building, I believe it was in Lowell. And it was a young couple. Husband did a lot of travel for work. There was a stipulation in the purchase and sale contract that they wanted to know if there was any violent crime or death in the building. 300-year-old building. Probably.
Yeah.
It's it's an old mill building.
Yeah. Records don't go back that far.
And it's it's a brand new condo. No one has lived in the condo before you.
Right.
Or I think there might have been one previous owner. No one's lived there before. But before it was a condo, it was abandoned for decades, and then before that it was a mill. So you hear all the child labor laws were different, and all the people who the Industrial Revolution that sparked up Lowell and all of these things. I imagine I'm listen,
Yeah.
No one's died in the unit, but no one's going to go into a contract and say that there was no death in the building.
Yeah.
Like, because what it really came down to was the wife was afraid of ghosts. And
because of the age of the building, she thought maybe there's something that could still be here.
She was
from
worried
a
about
spirit.
being by herself so often. And she believed in ghosts and thought that there would be ghosts in the condo. So I'm literally trying to explain explain this to my client, being like, they're not going to agree to this.
Yeah.
Adding this to the contract. I mean, if you want it, or if you want to buy it,
If that's important enough to you, then you need to make the decision. If you don't know, is it still that important to you?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And ultimately went through with it because it was beautiful. I tend to get very hands-on. Probably, and some realtors like it, some realtors don't. But like I've gone to final walkthroughs. I've gone through, I've gone with them to open houses. Attorneys can get involved in the real estate transaction at numerous points, right?
Yeah.
So, this was a client that I was involved with probably at the stage where they started looking. So, I went to that condo. I saw them. I was there.
Yeah.
Because they're very good people, and I really liked helping them. But, sometimes, when you got plans outside of work, your clients have to come first. So
yeah, absolutely.
It's really important.
Absolutely. I have a pretty good track record of when I go on vacation. 9 times out of 10, somebody wants to put an offer in.
Yeah.
And I've got a good track record right now to getting them accepted, so I got to keep going on vacation.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it doesn't stop. And my family's used to it over the years. I was in the mortgage industry when I first started out. I started out processing mortgages. I was an originator, a loan originator. Those today are the same thing. And I was at a mortgage company, not a traditional bank where they may not be working outside the 9 to 5. So my kids on vacation would be like, 1 minute, Mom will be right there. I'm going to get on the roller coaster with you in a second. I got to take this call. So my family was used to that. Yeah. So you have to be able to take that transition. But the flip side to that is you do have flexibility to do things. Like there are certain times mornings are less busy than they are in the afternoons. Evening and weekends are still the highest traffic period for people to go out, look at properties. The weekends are super busy, obviously, with open houses and things like that. But you do have some of that your own flexibility during the week to schedule things where in your office, you've got to ask your boss. You got to find out, do I have the time to take off? Those kinds of things. So that was a really, really nice change.
Yeah.
30 years of being in an office under that corporate environment was definitely a nice change.
Yeah, I agree. I remember when I was working my software job, it was like you had 30 minutes for lunch, and it's like I worked in a software company that was down in Waltham.
Where you go in 30 minutes? You can't get anywhere.
Well, all my stuff, my doctors are up here, my dentists are up here. I've lived in the North Shore my whole life, so I was making a long commute. But so it's like I couldn't just go to the dentist or go to the bank. I would have to take time off for that. So I am. Yeah, I think it's a good trade-off. But it's all you just got to find something that you like and something that makes you happy.
Yep.
So are you just licensed in Massachusetts?
No, Mass, New Hampshire.
Okay.
I'm working on my main license. I haven't really gone to that extent yet. I'd like to. We get calls oftentimes, people that are trying to go over the border a little bit towards the Maine area, the southern Maine. I probably wouldn't go up far as Portland because it's just an area I don't know that well. And to be honest with you, taking 2 hours to ride it can be, you have to kiss a lot of frogs and go to a lot of houses and do a lot of showings before they find the right one. So sometimes they may not ever find the right one, especially in this environment with the low inventory. You're taking people out. I've had several clients that have been looking for years, stopped for a while because they got burnt out when we were going through COVID and the interest rates, that are back again saying, all right, I'm ready to climb that mountain again and start looking. Starting over, you don't make anything if it doesn't happen. So you kind of got to plan accordingly. But Mass and New Hampshire, I pretty much cover everywhere. I've gone all the way out to the western part of the state and, a couple hours away in New Hampshire for some close friends, things like that. But yeah, pretty much just the seacoast area is really where I feel most comfortable with, and out to a little bit into the Lowell area. Credit and I worked at was located in Lowell, so I'm very familiar with the Middlesex County area.
Nice.
So yeah.
I definitely feel like there's a lot of people now, just because of New Hampshire, you can get a little bit more house for your money, right? And so I think a lot of people are attracted to that, where especially in Newburyport, prices have never really been higher, and they're really not going down at all.
Doesn't look like it. Doesn't
So
look
it's
like
like,
it.
I think a lot of people, they're getting older, you can downsize, you sell your house maybe here, and then you're only 10 to 20 miles north, you can buy something in southern New Hampshire.
Right.
And, it could be bigger, smaller, whatever, but it'll be
Yeah.
usually less expensive.
Yeah, I've seen a real migration from folks in that, Revere, Stoneham, Linfield, in those areas, like, no, sure, you could go, obviously go into up Route 3 or up 93, but closer to 95 over here, that have made that progression, that they have something here, either selling it and they're looking to get more land or a bigger house, that have come this way. You see a lot of that at open houses, people are coming from far away that you wouldn't expect them to come from, but they're trying to come up here because the price is better than closer to the city. They get more land and they're getting a little bit more bang for their buck.
I also think you have a lot of people like, I'm turning 40 this month. So I just had my 20-year high school reunion, right? So I think we're also having a lot of people who are like my age who, maybe moved to like Suffolk County because that's where their job was.
Yeah.
They worked in
Or
Boston.
went to school there,
Yeah,
got a job there. Yeah.
And then they were in that surrounding area. Maybe they were just like living in Lexington or like you said, Revere or some sort of borough of Boston.
Yeah.
And then, now that with COVID and everyone started working from home, it's like you can work
Changed everything.
anywhere. Like my paralegal right now, I believe lives in South Carolina. She's 100% remote.
Yeah.
So it's like you can kind of do like go like live where you want. You don't have to live where you work now. So
People were looking for that extra bedroom
yeah.
in houses, and that was a reason for moving, is because they work from home now and they needed that extra space.
that extra
Because you're
office.
both working from home and you needed a separate space for your offices.
Yeah.
And so a bigger bedroom count was one of the
I
needs.
think also now with like Martha Hill recently passed a law that allows for additional dwelling units
Yep,
to
the
be sort of
ADUs.
ADUs to be additional dwelling units, folks at home, or just so we're not too much inside baseball. It's like an in-law apartment, basically. The way it was before this new law was basically the cities and towns could have their own local zoning ordinances on how those would work. Like I know, for example, in Topsfield, before the law, if you wanted an in-law apartment, it couldn't have its own separate exit or entrance. It had to use the same household community entrance. You couldn't have like a side door or anything like that. So now all those restrictions are gone.
Yeah.
And that's basically to help with the housing crisis, right?
Yeah.
So I think now people are, like I was even considering just building a separate structure on my land.
Just because you can now, and it makes it more valuable.
Makes it more valuable. We also have my father-in-law is aging.
Absolutely.
So he lives in Florida. So we were toying around with the idea of, does he want, I have a 2-year-old son, doesn't get to see him at all. So does it make more sense for him to come
Yeah.
up and live here? And so we were just toying around with that.
Yeah.
I don't really have, my house isn't very big, so it would be cramped if he was in there. But
Yeah.
we could easily build
One bedroom,
a modular
open.
home.
Yeah.
They sell them on Amazon.
Yeah, I know. Right.
They're like $27,000.
Tiny homes.
Yeah,
or,
exactly. So you
Yeah.
build a little tiny home in the backyard,
Yeah.
and is my understanding is, and you might know this better than I do, is if it's heated, it counts towards your square footage.
Yep.
So you
Yep,
know,
and the ceiling height obviously has to be, I don't know, 6 or 7 foot high ceiling, so you can't have, a lot of them have slants, and they're not counting anything. If you can't stand up in it,
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
not gonna count that as much square footage. And
Yeah.
above grade is better than below grade,
Yeah.
all that.
I recently had a client who bought a house in New Hampshire, and their basement was finished, but it was the low ceiling, so they doesn't count towards the square
Right.
footage, which is, they're short, so it works perfect for them.
Yeah.
Because they just live down there, and it's like a tremendously more living
Yeah,
area.
just an extra space to hang out.
Yeah, exactly. So it worked out quite well
Yeah,
for them. So
yeah.
that's why it's always important, folks, to have a good realtor, a good real estate attorney, to kind of help you navigate some of these little more technical issues. Now, working in, I was a mass attorney. I recently was accepted to the New Hampshire bar, so now I'm dual licensed as well.
Congratulations.
And so, thank you. And so, some of the things I'm seeing now is just such difference between Massachusetts and New Hampshire, right? Massachusetts attorney is required in the transaction. New Hampshire
One of the
does-
only states, isn't it, in the country, I
Yeah.
think, left that has an attorney.
Yeah.
Has to be.
has to be
yeah.
in there. So, and that's how I got my start. And really, I was someone who worked law school. I worked while I went to law school.
Yeah.
So I went to law school at night. And really, that was the only opportunity I could get. It took me 3 years after I graduated to find a legal profession that paid me something comparable to what I was making.
Yeah.
So real estate law was really the only opportunity because, it was atypical schedule, and
Yeah.
there was a lot of after hours and Saturdays and things like that
Right.
that I had to work. So
Yeah.
it provided for a good opportunity. And I worked through the refi boom, and through COVID, I was considered essential. So like, I got exposed to a tremendous amount of things very quickly. The firm I was at, there was a couple people who just weren't gonna. Like, I'm shutting down. Like, it's not worth the risk to my family.
Yeah.
I'm staying home. I'm not coming to the office. I can't work here anymore. And that provided opportunities for me to, work in things that I wasn't used to, like commercial, or
Yeah.
started doing wills and trusts and probates, and sort of broadening my horizons quite a little bit.
But those are natural extensions of the home
Exactly.
sale.
Yeah. I tell
Probates
people,
you got a whole nother show on that, and license to
Yeah.
sell and estates. That is such a misunderstood part of the process, and that's a
and
whole
that's
show you should do.
something that when I migrated towards. So in my career, I went from a real estate firm that mainly handled real estate and did other things as well. But those other things, they did them, but they didn't do them well. And I didn't know that until after I left.
Yeah.
And I worked for a firm that solely did like estate planning and probate and things like that. And then what you really learn is, everything that I was doing before, it wasn't wrong, but it certainly wasn't to the level that it should have been. And so you learn the fine details there. And now I'm in a spot where, it's although my experience is typically a mass, but in New Hampshire, we're getting there. And it's the whole thing is, it's just
Yeah.
the market is so different and the people are so different in New Hampshire.
Yep.
Like, and now, like, regardless of the law, in Mass, when I was doing transactions, buyers and sellers never met at the closing table
Right.
post-COVID.
Yeah.
Like, I remember before COVID they did, and that was great. I did a lot
Yeah.
of closings at the registry and
Yeah.
met a lot of clients at the registry. And then COVID happened, and then that stopped.
Yep.
I remember I had a client who was selling a family restaurant. Like, parents are getting older, didn't want to do it anymore, sold the restaurant, and they owned the building. Like,
Yeah.
so I facilitated, the sale of the real estate and the sale of the business. And the mother, like, because like her kids grew up in that restaurant, like it was a big deal. She wanted to like meet the person buying it.
It meant a lot to her to
It
know
meant a
who's
lot
going
to
to
her.
be there.
Yeah, who's going to be there? And so like when I told her like, well, no, like I'm going to just overnight everything. We're just going to overnight all the executed documents the day
Yeah.
before the closing, and they're just going to close on their own time. And she really wanted a like an in-person closing. So like
Yeah.
I worked real hard and talked to the other attorney, and we made it happen. But it was like they forgot how to do it.
Right.
Because I wasn't the one closing that transaction. I was just representing the seller.
Yeah.
So like you typically want to have the bank's attorney just sort of run the show, and just that's sort of what they're there for. But he was a new lawyer too, and so he was like fresh out of law school,
Yeah.
I think. And
Do you miss that in New Hampshire, though? You miss a lot of that in New Hampshire
Yeah.
because you don't necessarily get involved in the early stages, like with the
Yeah.
offer and then a purchase and sale.
Exactly.
Because your same document, it doesn't get reviewed. The document is the document,
Yeah.
and then you come in later, and so you don't have that opportunity sometimes to have that communication
like-
be as extensive.
like in Mass, there's sometimes usually three attorneys in every transaction.
Yeah.
There's a bank attorney, and sometimes it's two, but sometimes it's also three.
Yep.
In New Hampshire, sometimes it's zero.
Right.
And it's vastly different, but like people still show up in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
They go to their closing, they take their keys out of their pocket, they take the key
Yeah.
off, and they pass. And I missed that so much,
Yeah.
and I was so happy to see that it's still there. So it's tremendously different. Like
Yeah.
it's funny because not only the laws change, but like it's only 20, 30 miles, but it's like the culture of the industry
completely
is
different.
completely different.
Yeah. I'm glad to see that. I love to see a seller and a buyer get together at the final walkthrough.
Yeah.
Because there's all these little nuances. You got to jiggle this switch.
Yep.
Or what do you have to do about certain things in the house and how to maintain it? I've had some instances where the seller's like, oh, I don't want to be there. And that makes me nervous because why won't they be there? When the buyers really want them to be there, to tell them, hey, how do I get this to work? I don't know how to run this. I've never had a air conditioning unit or something to that effect.
Yeah.
So it's really nice, though, to see them get together and they really talk, because it is important a lot of times, especially if it's a family home that's been there for a long time. They want to know who's going to continue those memories,
Yeah. And it is interesting too. You mentioned that, like, the sellers not wanting to be at a final walkthrough, because I feel like since COVID, since that stopped, right, and around in this area at least, there's so many more issues that come up post close.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, are people just getting sneakier, or is that?
No, I don't know what
Has
it
it
is.
just
I
always
just,
been there?
I think it's always been there, but I just think it's people are more mindful if someone's there that they're trying to hide something. They're thinking that they've been almost suspect of something if someone's not being willing to be upfront and open with something. So there must be a problem. I see that sometimes when people put an offer in on a property, they'll assume something that they just because of a certain response. And so I think it's the same thing. They're just assuming certain things that maybe not there, but they're looking for the rug to be pulled out somehow, and they're afraid something's not going to be what they thought it was. And a lot of that I think stems from home inspections, right? Home inspections really went out the window when the inventory got low and it was so competitive. People were waiving them as a way to have an advantage for the sellers to accept their offer. And so there was always that angst of, what am I missing because I didn't do a home inspection? And now the seller doesn't want to be at the walkthrough. Are they hiding something from me? So I think that's just a reaction to the way things kind of changed. COVID changed everything. It really did. It changed the way everybody thinks about the process. So.
Yeah, I think, and there's so much, and as I feel like, at least for me, it's like that time was years, and it feels like it just went by like that.
I know.
So it's like, for something that was a couple of years long, that maybe we all just want to forget about it.
Yeah.
And like, maybe it's also because like we were just all stuck at home and no one really did anything for 2 years.
I know.
And then it's like now we're back into the swing of things. We're kind of going hog wild, and it's just sort of just a blip on the radar, basically.
Right, but the real estate industry kept going, and that really carried a lot of the economy because of that.
Did, yeah.
And that was when video tours were rampant, hands in pocket showings. People didn't want people going in through the house, so video tours. People didn't want to come out, so I would often, someone would want to see something, I'd go there, video it, and they'd make the purchase.
Yeah.
So.
And I think that was also like the explosion of those click tours that you see now.
Yep, Matterport.
Yeah. Because now that's even in hotel rooms.
Yes.
I was looking to book a hotel room in in a Disney World resort, and they had those now, and so you could see how the room was. I'm like, because I have a 2-year-old son.
Is it going to be space? How big is it? How small is it?
We have the pack and play. Where can we put that? Like, where is he going to sleep? Like, because hotel rooms are very tiny. And it's like something I never would have thought of before I was a dad. Of where's the kid going to sleep?
Absolutely.
Do we need a suite now? Does he need his own bedroom?
Yeah.
Like.
Now you can do them with your phone.
Yeah.
A lot of times before, it would be a kind of special camera and that kind of thing that'll hold it so it doesn't wiggle and the video is clear when you're walking around when you film those. I tried doing it. It's not easy to do it on your phone. You have to stay in a place, especially doing the stairs when you're going from one level to another. It's very tricky. So those that have gotten good at it on their phone, they're still happening, and they're great tools.
Yeah, I also think like just how we consume media too is just now so visual.
Yeah.
And like with YouTube and used to everything needed to be like heavily produced and look a certain way, otherwise you wouldn't take it seriously.
Yeah.
And now with TikTok, like my wife will tell me like, oh, this restaurant is fantastic, and instead of like watching Phantom Gourmet, we're just seeing a 30-second TikTok on a guy, and like that's
like, oh, that looks great. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, Judy, that's all the time we have for today.
Okay.
So thank you for coming on the Common Law.
Thank you. I really appreciate you having me on. It was a great conversation, and love to do it again.
Great, fantastic. Now, if anybody at home has a question for Judy, my email address is at the bottom of the screen. Please get a hold of me, and then I will relay your information, your question to Judy if it's appropriate to do so. Again, any of the conversation you heard here today, I hope you found educational and entertaining. But please do not consider anything that we spoke on today as any sort of legal or advice in terms of your specific real estate needs. You really need to hire an agent or a lawyer if you're looking to buy, sell, or that's just someone. Agency is just somebody that helps you accomplish what your goals are, and you're hiring an expert to kind of help with that. So please don't take anything like we said as scripture here or legal advice. And thank you all for tuning in, and we will see you next time on the next episode of The Common Law. Good night.